week we have a very special guest from sunny DR. He is a Ph.D. student in ethnomusicology at UMD. His research focuses on gaga and explores issues on race, immigration, and discrimination. He's also a very talented flute musician. Let's welcome Victor Hernandez-Sang.
Really happy that we got to meet you and that you're part of our community here at Lasc. So I have a couple of quick questions. I'm gonna take you back all the way to like when you were 10 because I'm actually excited about like why flute, like what happened, because a lot of times people go into guitarra, drums, bateria. They just want to, they see something cool that sounds, but flute is a different instrument, right? I mean, it's a beautiful instrument. So, ¿qué pasó? Cuéntame.
Sí, o sea, y la flauta, en lo que yo tocaba y me entrené fue como en música clásica, ¿verdad? Y yo de que era pequeño, o sea, diferente a que sea música popular o de que rock o no sé qué, ¿verdad? Como que música clásica. Y algo de eso, no sé, yo desde pequeño, mi mamá y mi papá me ponían como para dormir, ponían música clásica.
Like lullabies?
No, eran como música sinfónica. No sé, ellos tenían varios CDs, varios álbumes que
Mozart,
se ponían.
Bach,
Cosas así, exactamente. Y entonces como que siempre me llamaba la atención eso. Y entonces me acuerdo cuando estaba como en cuarto de básica o cuarto quinto, nosotros aprendimos a tocar el recorder, la flauta dulce.
La flauta dulce, eso es lo que...
Exactamente. Entonces así de que, como que me gusta, no sé, me llamó la atención. Yo digo, mami, yo quiero aprender a tocar esto. Ok, entonces yo vi a la profesora que nos enseñó recorder, tocaba la flauta traversa, que era la flauta, qué sé yo, orquestal, como le dicen, ¿verdad? Y así fue que entré y me pusieron en clase y me siguió gustando. O sea, de la flauta me llamaba mucho la atención, era cómo suena, el sonido. O sea, un instrumento que tiene cierta, qué sé yo, warmth, ¿cómo se diría eso en español? Qué sé yo, como algo... Cálido, sí, exactamente, no sé.
Tiene algo especial para ti.
Sí, como que no sé cómo describirlo, pero eso fue lo que me llamó y lo que me mantuvo tantos años en la flauta.
Sorry. Do you think your household had a major impact in like your influence in music?
I think it's funny because I am the only musician in my household, right?
Okay.
And I'm the only one who can sing. So it's funny to think about it, whether it's like I don't come from a musical family, for example.
Because usually it's like passed down.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, none of that. And when I say I'm the only one who can sing, like literally. And this is always a joke in my family. Like my parents and my mom is the one who can like sing a little bit. She can sing along or match a pitch or whatever, but like my two sisters and my dad like tone deaf completely. And so it was because of that story of my like listening to music, I guess. And I do have an uncle who's a musician, right? But then that was it. My mom has like 8 siblings, and there's only one musician there. And then we have like a group of other cousins who are into music, but that's it. My family's not really like a musical one.
But they've always supported you with like your dreams to become a musician.
100%.
Okay,
yes,
nice.
Totally. Yeah.
So you have classical music as a kid, and then you have this popular music perhaps around you, and now you're working on gaga music, which I'm sorry, my ignorance, I'm not sure if that's a particular style of music.
Yes. Yeah.
And now you're living in the U.S. So all these different experiences, and also even though you mentioned that you have a Chinese background, but you haven't been that connected to that. But anyways, have any of this different kind of music and experiences that you have had, has that kind of shaped to where you are right now in terms of your research and your music?
Yeah, I think, if I think back of my years before coming to the US, I don't necessarily had that I think again, like I was really surrounded by like music in the DR, right? And I grew up listening to merengue, right? Exactly, and a little bit of bachata, and other musics, right? And like it was like, you know, in all family gatherings there was music, of course, right? You had to dance merengue, mostly merengue. You know, there's a whole history of no, that's okay. I was gonna go on a tangent, but then it was definitely coming to the US. In the first step is like coming to college, when like you go away from home. It's like when you start thinking more about back home, when you start to think more broadly. It's like, oh, I'm not only Dominican, I'm from like Latin America. And then like, you know, when you start familiarizing yourself with discourses about Latinx in the US, people of Latinx ancestry, immigration in the US, kind of like identity politics and all that. And then, you know, you're in college, you're far away from home, and you start thinking more about it. You're a musician, then you start learning more about musics from other parts of Latin America. And that's one of the things about Dominican Republic, different from a lot of the countries in Latin America, where a lot of the popular music in Dominican Republic from outside of the Dominican Republic are either from like the Caribbean, like Spanish-speaking Caribbean, or Mexico or something like that, right? As opposed to like, there's nothing about like Southern corn or things from Brazil and all that, right? It's like me going to college that I open up my eyes or like my mind like explodes, and I start to like pay more attention to things about where I'm from and how's that connected to other music. And really then after that, it's like then coming into graduate school to study music, right? To read about music, to read the research on music, is when then you start to think more broadly about that and make the connections. And I think that to me, the things that drew me to gaga, Afro-descendant rhythms, have to do, one, with my interest in music and in drumming, in percussion, in on the one hand, like aesthetically, like what attracts me, but on the other one, it's an interest in thinking about writing and talking about marginalized sectors of society in a way, people who are disenfranchised from society in the Dominican Republic. And that's kind of like combining those two things was how I got into studying first palos music in the Dominican Republic, and now going into gaga and that. Yeah.
Because I remember in the lecture that you came into our class, you like spoke about like reggaeton and Panama and Puerto Rico and like Haiti. Did you mention Haiti?
Or Jamaica?
Jamaica. There we go. And just like I was really mind blown how you like mentioned all these different countries and like the impact, like when you combine them all together, rather than like, oh, I just thought reggaeton was a strictly Puerto Rico thing, but just the influences of different countries. And I think that's what you kind of discussed in your research, correct? Just like the influences and impact in different regions.
Yeah, it's kind of like I guess what I was talking about is that like
it's all like intertwined.
Yeah, exactly. How everything is intertwined and nothing has like a one distinct origin or whatever, right? That all of those genres and people from all over the Caribbean borrow from each other and combine fusion music and again, yeah, that's related to, because I guess the reggaeton issue is more popular music, right? That circulates in the radio, records, and nowadays, right, internet. But traditions like gaga, palos, also have a long history of again, all being part of Afro-descendant and musics of the African diaspora, right? And music traditions connected to religions that were of that evolved from African religions that were combined in the New World, right? During colonization with Catholicism and all that. And there are like examples of that all over Latin America, right? Not only the Dominican Republic or like Haiti, Cuba, but of course Brazil and all over Latin America, really. Yeah.
Right. And like the research talks about like the past and how it developed, but how about like the future? Like, what do you think the future of music is gonna be?
That's a really
question.
yeah on the spot. It's a really interesting question. I mean, it's hard to tell, but definitely I think things are just gonna get better. I think so. Here's my 2 cents on my perspective of like on how music's gonna change or whatever. Because for example, like something lesser known, but something that we always hear is how people are like, oh, the music in my time was like, you know, right? We always hear how people are like, the music in my time, right. And for example, in the Dominican Republic, there's a lot of conversation right now of how merengue is young people are not playing merengue, right? The current merengue musicians and bars and the people had been around for 20, 25, 30 years, right? There's like very few people, there's like a lot of people, traditionalists being like, oh my gosh, you know, merengue is losing its value, it's losing its blah, 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 which is, right, a lot of what we hear everywhere in the world about popular music or whatever, traditional music, right? But then the reality is like, you know, music's always gonna change, and then music is always have people who are doing music are always going to find a way to do music that is meaningful to them, that is appropriate for the time, that reflects something about what people are doing, what is important to people, and yeah, that sonically or whatever sounds, you know, more quote unquote simple or whatever, but at the same time, like when you think about like the newer reggaeton or whatever, that other people might say it's not as good as the early 2000s reggaeton. There's all the things that they're doing that are, quote unquote better, you know, and then that better depends on like who is better for who, you know.
For the individual.
Exactly, yeah, very individual and very for generation also, right? Of course, the people who were listening to reggaeton in the early 2000s are not gonna find it as appealing right now or whatever. But I think, yeah, again, music's always gonna be evolving, and I think that there's always gonna be a good thing, and as other, right, there's all gonna be other things that are not as good or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
So
like currently now I kind of see like a transition with, people say it's like dembow, but it's more like EDM kind of, like more like a lot of like heavy beats. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the artist El Alfa. They say how he's like the king of dembow now, but comparing it to like your lecture side and with the video you gave, what was the artist? I forgot the name. Who the dembow song?
Like from the original.
The
song?
Original.
Yeah, that was Shawa Ranks.
Okay.
From like Jamaica.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's so slow compared to like now,
exactly.
how it's more like
yes, exactly.
EDM sort of phase. Not really. I don't really know how to describe it. So I can see like the trend and just how different it is compared to like 10 years ago and like now.
Yeah, totally.
And so coming to UMD, did you see any did you learn anything new about music and how you weren't really exposed to that, like let's say in Dominican Republic?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, once you come to a program in ethnomusicology, it's when you start thinking about not only like what music is, how music sounds, how the music is done or whatever, how it's played, but then you start reading more, learning more about how music works, why people do music, how is music useful to people, right? To communities, to society, to cultures. How does music function, right? And again, there's a lot of things. It's very interesting to when you come to graduate school, to a master's degree, to a doctorate, and then when you look back to what you experience and what you learn in growing up, right? Or like in high school, whatever, when you're like pretend that when you think you're an adult, right? When you so it's really interesting, right? That happens to all of us, right? When we're growing, we reflect back. But in my case, when thinking about music, with the things that I learned here, like I apply it back and I'm like, wow, it's so interesting to think about, again, when you're more critical, more knowledgeable about your own position in the country that you grew up, the music that you were listening to. Why were you listening to this music growing up and not to this music, right? How does that say about your again, your position, socioeconomic status, the region where you grew up, and then you make all those connections and you learn more about that, and it's really interesting exercise to apply when you do it to yourself and all that. Yeah.
And Victor, so my question here is, in your master's program, you did research on palo music, right? And then now you're working on gaga music. And can you kind of tell us, how is that the process? I mean, you came to UMD with a notion of what you wanted to study. It seems like this is Dominican music, and or like, what influenced the decision, or how did you come up with, going into that process of research? And if you can explain a little bit about what gaga music is, and
Okay, yeah. So to answer the first part, it was in college, right, when I discovered ethnomusicology, where I took the first class, and then that's where I met the professor there who was teaching ethnomusicology, and then I wanted to explore more. I learned more about the field, what the kind of programs that there are there, and then he suggested that I do my bachelor thesis on doing a research, a project, doing field work and in a ethnomusicological way or whatever, right? And that's what I did for the summer between my junior and senior year. I went back home to do research, field work, and really came. I remember I was just thinking about. I remember him saying okay, so what do you think you want to do research on? And I was like, I know that there's a lot written on merengue. There's a lot written on, not a lot, but there were already research on merengue, on bachata, and then so there's this tradition, palos music, that I know there's only very little written about, and it is music that is not popular, right? It's like music related to religion. And then I know that, again, going back to what I was saying, that it was me reflecting back. I was like, I know that's a music tradition of people in the DR who, it's a religion that is very stigmatized, and then done by a population in the Dominican Republic who are very marginalized, socially marginalized, and I'm not talking even Haitian immigrants, right? I'm talking about poor, uneducated people in the Dominican Republic, and that's what I was okay, I think I want to do something on palos music. And then it happened that summer. Sydney Hutchinson, an ethnomusicologist who does work in the Dominican Republic, happened to be doing a seminar class open to people in the Dominican Republic in my hometown. So it all coincided that she was doing the class. I was going that summer to do research. Through that class, I met the musicians that later on became my let's say interlocutors in my research. And that's how I got into palos, and basically I wanted to continue that for expand on it for my master's, and that's when I applied to master's degree. I used my bachelor thesis as my writing sample, and saying that I wanted to expand on this, that I wanted to do more research on palos music, and then really my interest in how I turned from there to gaga, it's because, again, of the overt and explicit racism against Haitian-Dominicans in the Dominican Republic, and how I remember it was the year I graduated 2013 from college, and it was September 2013 when this ruling or a new law in the Dominican Republic came in effect that basically took away the citizenship of many Haitian Dominicans. That's a really long story of why that happened, but imagine there's this new law, and thousands of people were affected, people who were citizens and were no longer citizens, and they had to go in another route to get their documents in place to become permanent residents, but not citizens. And so I remember, like, I was back home, that happened, that sparked all over, people in favor of it, people against it. So I always kept that in the back of my head, how that really, in a way, really infuriated me in a way, or made me feel very mad about it. And so I think that I definitely come into the project on gaga, being conscious about, right, that I'm again a researcher from an outsider, more privileged, coming and doing work, but I think that I also approach it as a way of a critique to the state and the government and the country that I'm supposed to identify with, right, that I grew up with, and how you have this very discriminated against sector in society and all that. And so that's how I came into, I guess, palos and gaga, right? Mixing all that too. And my interest in the music, right? Because these are music traditions that are also aesthetically appealing to me to an extent, right? So I guess to answer to your question of like what the traditions are, so how they sound or what they are. So they're both music traditions that are related again to religion. In the case of palos, las 21 divisiones. In the case of gaga, Haitian voodoo. And they're both very similar. They share a lot of similarities. Depending on who you ask, people who practice it try to like say how different they are because of the difference. Of course, we do the Dominican religion. We don't do Haitian voodoo or the other way around, right? But both of them are religions that are basically primarily based on the relationship between the practitioners and the deities. In the case of Haitian voodoo, you have Lua. The Luases are the deities. And in the case of las 21 divisiones, you have misterios. And they're both deities in both of the realms of the religion. Those are deities that are represented by Catholic saints, right? Where you have in both of the religions, you have deities that they share both the name of the Catholic saint and another name, and how they're used interchangeably. But it's primarily that, where it's the relationship between the deities and a believer and a devotee, and then you work through with the help of a religious leader, or in the case of Haitian voodoo, they're usually known as a priest or priestess, right? And then in las 21 divisiones, it's un servidor or servidora, right? Like a server of the misterios. So it's somebody who has the ability to be possessed by a deity, and then that person hosts ceremonies, music, religious ceremonies where there is music, right? Where the music is used as a way basically to facilitate the spirit possession, to attract the deity, to make it come into possession of the religious leader. And they're both religions that have drums, right? Like hand drums. In the case of palos, they are an ensemble of like 3 drums and other idiophones like a guira, right? The metal scraper. You have a tambourine, the pandereta. In the case of gaga, you have at least 3 drums, like different sizes, different diameters. But then the particular thing about gaga is that they have wind instruments, so they use this metal tin cornets, let's say, that they call tattoo, and they also use bamboos, like literally bamboo, like a bamboo piece of 2-3 feet, where they blow into it. So there's like always like an ensemble of that they play together, interlock rhythms and melodies, like each of them have like 1 or 2 notes, and how that sounds. So yeah, they're both very, like, when you listen to them, you want to move, kind of thing, like it's recognizing that sometimes that sounds I don't know, exoticizing or whatever, but they're music to dance, right? And then when you dance to those music, it's like moving your hips, right? So it's music that is made for you to want to move and dance. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, Victor, I feel like we need to probably do a second interview at some point because
Part
there's
2 coming soon.
Yeah, but for now, I think that at the end of this conversation, we ask our guests to give us perhaps a brief answer on what is Latin America for you. And you're coming from the Caribbean, right? And a lot of times we have this we separate them, but sometimes we talk about it as one region. So what is for you Latin America and or the Caribbean?
Oh my gosh, that's a big question.
I know.
In 3 sentences.
Yeah.
Starting now.
Give me an abstract. All right. Wow. America Latina, I guess for me is like, I mean, it's a vast region of a lot of things, right? It's a lot of cultures, a lot of different ways of being, a lot of different lifestyles, and a lot of different ideas, and it's where there's a lot of inspiring people, a lot of resilience, I guess, and a lot of trying to think about everything that I ever, but definitely it always comes can always come into conflict with the different ways that that governments try to portray each of the countries, right? There's a recurring thing in Latin American history, in the world, right? How there's always the issue of like national identity, or trying to represent the nation with one perspective or one thing. That's definitely something that has pervaded throughout Latin America and like throughout Latin American history, right? And how doing that ignores and marginalizes a lot of people, right? And how a lot of the power relies on like the few, and with that comes a lot of like misrepresentation, and again marginalization, disenfranchisement, and exactly, is that word,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, but at the same time, it's from the perspective of music, for me, it's like it's a infinite source of creativity and ideas and sounds and I don't know. I don't want to make it. I realize that maybe I'm making it sound too rosy, right, in a way, or like I don't know what else how to say it more. But yeah, I don't know, more down to earth or whatever. But you guys definitely got me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you for co-hosting today.
Thank you.
We want to wish you the best. I know that you are going to be gone for a semester, so we're going to miss you here at Lasc.
Yeah.
But just report back. Just send us an email. Let us know, how things are going. And, we're going to miss you for this next semester. But we're excited about what you're doing, and best of the best. Good luck to you. Buena suerte, hermano, y muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my honor to be here, and I'm really, I'm very happy, very glad to contribute to this project, given my whole involvement in Lasc in all these years. So thank you for inviting me. And yes, I'm totally down to come back and go more in depth with all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This podcast was brought to you by the Latin American Studies Center at the University of Maryland. Please follow us on social media and don't forget to play the next podcast. Thank you and nos vemos.